Now, storms, of course, ravaged much of the south over Christmas, and many waited days, if not weeks, to see power restored, potholes patched up, or even floodwater to subside. But imagine if you've been waiting over a year to see damage repaired from the storms of last year, 2012-2013. Well, that's the story for people in Totland on the Isle of Wight, after a stretch of their seawall collapsed into a landslip following heavy rain in the run-up to Christmas 2012. And now campaigners say they've got a 4,000-strong petition which will go to the council leader next week, saying this needs to be sorted out. And let's talk now to our Hampshire and Isle of Wight political reporter Jessica Parker, who's by Totland Pier for us this morning. So, Jess, this isn't a few weeks back. This is, 13 months ago now?
Yes, indeed, quite a long time. Of course, following all that rainfall over the autumn and Christmas of 2012. And as you mentioned, Jules, I'm stood by the pier here on North West Wight, facing out over the Solent this morning. It's a little grey, but you can still see a huge swathe of the south's coastline. I can see much of the New Forest coast, then moving over there to Hurst Castle, peeking out in the distance. I can see the lighthouse beaming out at us, and then over to Fawley. But the spectacular outlook is somewhat tainted by what I can see closer to home, to my right, the local seawall, approximately half a mile along, which runs between Totland and Colwell Bay. Part of it is in pieces, pushed forward by around 30 feet because of a landslip which came after we had all that seemingly endless rainfall in the autumn of 2012. So the route has been closed to the public, and now the public are going to make their voice heard.
Well, one of those people is Helen Wood. Helen, joining you there, a Totland resident. And Helen, that's quite some signatures you've managed to pull together.
Yes, absolutely. We've been very, very pleased with the response. We started it online, and somebody suggested we push it over to a paper petition, and really people have stood up and they've been counted here. It's fantastic response.
And Helen, why do people feel so passionate?
They feel passionate because this is a stretch of coast, an accessible stretch of coastline that's embedded in local life and has been for probably the best part of a century since we've had a sea defence in place. This is a fantastic walk with unsurpassable views of the Solent. It's actually also one of the few accessible flat walks for disabled users.
And I know that, just to clarify here, you were saying to one of my colleagues earlier that you think this is as important for the West Wight as the Needles.
Yes, absolutely. There are one or two signature locations in the West Wight, the Needles, Fort Victoria, and this stretch of coastline between Totland and Colwell, for all the reasons that I've mentioned, is a spectacular location which tourists want to see. They want to use it. They want to be able to access it.
And Helen, for those listening who've perhaps had other sort of parts of the infrastructure fall apart due to bad weather, who might say, well, this isn't a major road, for example, that's got potholes in it, and it isn't somebody's home that's been flooded or damaged, and therefore it has to go down the pecking order. What do you say to that?
OK. Well, first of all, the cliff does have homes on top of it. Imminently, of course, they're not in danger. But if the cliff isn't shored up, that won't always be the case. And the reason I think this is important is this isn't just a local issue. This is about how the Isle of Wight manages its coastline. In order to get people to come here, a tourist island, we need to have an accessible coastline all around the island. And this is just one small part of it. But it does flag that the Isle of Wight Council need to make the accessible coastline a priority, because without it, why would tourists come here? They'd go to Bournemouth, they'd go to Brighton. We need to attract them here, not put them off.
OK, Helen, well put. Thank you. Well done. Thank you very much for that. Jess, just coming back to you, I know you've spoken to the council. What have they said?
Yes, Jules. So I'm told the authorities in receipt of a consultant's report about the Totland Seawall, the report which assesses the cause of the failure, whether similar failures could occur elsewhere, and considers costed options against national funding procedures, will be given to members soon. Officers are just currently considering it. But I'm told the information in terms of an actual ballpark figure, or who's going to pay for it exactly, that information's not yet available. But I also spoke to the Environment Agency yesterday, who may well be called upon for help. They say they'll support the council as they investigate remedial options and will consider any funding requests when they are submitted.
I was talking to someone about this yesterday who was saying this is going to be the big issue this year for local government in terms of expenditure on infrastructure, because it's not just, obviously, the Totland Seawall, it's many other things that have been affected by basically 2 winters of bad storms now. Are they going to be able to deal with it, Jess? And is there enough money to go around? I mean, if you look at the Isle of Wight, there are lots of examples there, aren't there?
Yes, that's a pretty pertinent question there, Jules. There certainly is, and as it happens, I was at full council last week, and the Cabinet Member for Public Protection, Phil Jordan, mentioned in his report that following this Christmas there had been storm damage to many coastal structures. He named Shanklin, Sandown, Seaview, St Helens, Bembridge, as well as Totland. And now he said that the repair work is being arranged, or areas have been fenced off until work can commence. But again, a more detailed report will be provided once a full review has been completed by officers.
Well, and final thought from you, Helen. They're talking about things that have happened in the last few weeks. You're worried about something that happened the winter before last.
Absolutely. This hasn't been available to us for a year now. We understand that the council, it's not a quick fix solution. We understand that they've got to pay, they have to wait for the consultant's report. But of course we're impatient. And as another tourist season approaches, I should imagine there are an awful lot of local people who are very, very worried. In fact, I know there are.
Well, you've been very
Thank
patient.
you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Helen. I think you've been pretty patient, actually, bearing in mind this was Christmas 2012 in your case. Helen Wood, the lead petitioner there with the Save Our Totland Seawall campaign, and our political reporter, Jessica Parker, live from Totland this morning, 7:15.